And credit cards. Check your statements every single month, every 30 days, check your statements.
Credit freeze lasts.
Credit freeze lasts for the rest of your life. Credit freeze is fantastic if you're in the home you're going to be in, if you're in the car you're going to be in, if you're not going to be refinancing anytime soon, if you're all set with the credit cards you have. Credit freeze is a great thing. If you're not doing anything financially, you're not moving any money around, this, that, the other thing, if you don't need credit, freeze it. If you need fluid credit, if you're buying, selling, whatever the case may be, you need to check credit, you know, you're in your, whatever the case may be, you're going to school, student loans, new cars, whatever, then fraud alerts are the best thing. But fraud alerts where a service will do it for you every 90 days. And just regardless, you want to have a service that watches your back. OneU.com is a fantastic service. Any other questions? Yes?
What about the national ID card you hear talk about? Is that
The national ID card that I'm referring to is something called the Real ID Act. The Real ID Act is legislation that was passed in 2005 that basically adds multiple layers of security to our existing form of identification. It is a good thing. Many people fight it, saying it's a violation of our privacy. Nothing could be further from the truth. While there may be a national database that brings us all together, there already are dozens of national databases that bring us all together, and they're held by private companies and by publicly traded companies. So the information is already out there. The information is already being bought and sold. The ID that I'm talking about will incorporate numerous layers of protection. It's the most effective form of identification to date that has yet to be implemented in the state of Massachusetts. I think we have till the end of 2013 to comply. And for those of you over the age of 50, I believe, it's by the age of 2018 you'll have to comply. So it's still a ways away until all of us will have the Real ID as a result of the Real ID Act. It's a good thing. And you should understand and study up on it because it's going to affect every one of you. Yes?
I've heard lately a little bit about children's identity.
Children identity theft is one of the easiest crimes to commit. You know why? Because they have virgin credit. They have social security numbers. And anyone at any time can take that child's social security number and they can pose as that child who's 2 and lie on that application and say they're 22. And there's no cross-referencing that information with the Social Security Administration. The credit bureaus take that lie at face value and they provide that identity thief with that new credit card. And it becomes of record that that 2-year-old is now 22. How stupid is that system? But that's the system we function under. More questions? Yes?
What about overseas? What about all the companies that have our information overseas?
Companies that have your information overseas, I would not worry about what they're doing with your information overseas. It's what they're doing with your information here that affects your quality of life here. And by getting either a credit freeze or a fraud alert or investing in a company that watches your back, then you don't have to worry about what they're doing overseas so much. You follow? It's the American companies that you do business with that you have the concerns with financially that are granting you credit. It's government agencies in the United States that you need to... Are you talking about call centers?
No, you know when you call for credit cards, all of a sudden now you're not calling here.
You're talking about a call center. You're talking about a call center. Whenever you call call centers, they have certain security in place. They have certain systems in place. They're monitoring their employees. Doesn't mean that they're 100% secure either. And they're going to continue to outsource. They're outsourcing to Brazil and to Mexico and to China and India and wherever. And as long as they're going to outsource, and that's the cheapest form of labor, that's going to continue to happen. Again, your concern is protecting the information that is you. And what is you? It's your name and it's your social security number. And the best way to protect that is by doing what? Investing in either credit freezes or fraud alerts. And that's really ultimately what your main concern is. If you want to protect your identity from any new financial accounts being opened up under your name, that's the bottom line. Nowadays, that's really your best and only option as far as ultimately rectifying that problem. Yes?
If your social security number is available simply
Very good point. So if your Social Security number is online, why should you worry about it? Why should you worry if it's in your wallet? In the security business, we talk about layers of protection. The more layers of protection you have in place, the more secure you're going to be. So, for example, we realize that bringing pepper sprays on a plane and box cutters is a bad idea, so we stopped doing that, right? So we don't do that any longer. But we know that people still do, because they have. But then we realize that all these different liquids can make a bomb. So we stopped doing that. But we know that people do. They still get them on the planes. But so if we just throw your hands up in the air and say, look, you know they can get them on the plane, why bother? Then we're dropping we're taking down different layers of protection, and we're just throwing up our hands and giving up. You don't want to do that. All these different tips are layers of protection. The more you do, the more safe and secure you're going to be. Just throwing your hands up and saying, well, why bother? Then you're just giving up. You're throwing in the towel. I don't want you to I'm not a security professional. I don't want you to throw in the towel. I want you to do everything you possibly can to protect you and your loved ones from this crime. Yes?
There's advice here to sign all new credit cards immediately. I have read advice from attorneys to say, do not sign a credit card. Write instead, it's a picture ID required.
There is an urban myth that it is better to put CID on your credit card when you sign it. The reality of it is, when you sign your credit card with driver's license or CID, you are voiding the contractual relationship you have with the credit card company. In order for that credit card to work, in order for you to be indemnified for any fraud that occurs with that card, you've got to sign your name to it. Yes. Yes.
I have two questions. When you run your credit report, you said you do it like every 6 months. Does that affect your credit rating?
When you run your credit report every 6 months or so, it does not. You can run your credit report. You personally can run your credit report every day, and it does not negatively affect your credit scores. It's only when creditors check your credit scores frequently that it negatively affects your credit scores. Creditors, banks, credit card companies, automobile dealers, and so on. It's when they check your credit. As a creditor, then the way the algorithms work with the FICO scores, it looks like, okay, they're doing something funny here, it plays with your scores. But you checking it personally does not negatively affect your scores. If you have a friend who works at a bank, and that friend is always checking your credit every 2 weeks, that's a problem for you. Because the system they use, it looks like it's a bank checking your credit every 2 weeks. So that's not going to work. It's going to affect your scores. So you doing it personally through something like annualcreditreport.com or buying it directly from the credit bureaus is a good thing.
And then I had another question.
Yes.
It said, what makes that website, the fraud website, so secure? You said before that 70% of identity theft could be inside people working there. So why are those websites?
Say that again?
The credit freeze or the fraud check website, why are they so secure?
Okay, as far as all the different entities that I recommended that you contact, like annualcreditreport.com, 1-888-5-OPT-OUT to opt out of pre-approved credit card offers. And so why are they secure and others aren't? Well, generally, major enterprises like them, the credit bureaus, major banks, they spend millions and millions of dollars annually to ensure that your information is secure in transit. So at times, you're going to have to give up a little data to get a little security. I mean, you give up all of your information for 10% off at Payless Shoes anyways, so you might as well give up your information to a security company or an entity that's going to secure it for you. So, I mean, it's kind of funny how we do things, you know? Yes?
Is there a way to prevent them from mailing you checks that are attached to the credit card you have?
I would always contact the issuing credit card company that you do business with and request that they no longer send you those checks in the mail. If you turn off the paper statements, that's one step, and then requesting they stop sending you those checks is the next one. I've actually stopped doing business with credit card companies that would not stop sending those checks because they kept sending them. I canceled the cards. More questions? Yes.
What's to keep me from checking your credit rating?
Go ahead.
But can you take advantage of it?
You can't do anything with my credit rating because I have a fraud alert. I have a nonstop fraud alert. I have a security system wrapped around my identity. I know how big a problem we have right here. I'm not going to get bit again. I got bit 10 years ago. It's not going to happen to me again. I see this problem probably, as clear as most of you see it at this point. And I see it as only getting worse. And at this point, I know that you cannot function in a credit-driven society without having fluid credit. So I cannot personally have a credit freeze because of my age and things I have going on. So credit freeze is impractical for me. So I have a non-stop fraud alert. So even if you tried to check my credit right now, you'd be denied. Or what would happen is I'd get a phone call saying that this particular entity is checking your credit. Is this? Did you acknowledge this account? And I would say yes or no, depending on if I had authorized it. So I have ongoing security. I have a company watching my back right now. And so should you. I mean, that's just a no-brainer to me. Yes?
The company watching your back is checking your credit all the time. Does that affect your scores?
No, because what they do is they don't actually check your credit all the time. What they do is they intercept any checks to your credit, requiring that at any given time, if somebody is checking your credit, somebody submits an application for credit. They fill it out online. They pull a pre-approved credit card offer out of the trash. They fill it in, send it in the mail. At that time, what's going to happen is your credit's going to be checked. Well, there's a system in place that requires that creditor to call you personally. They don't even look at the information on the application. They call you personally because when they try to check your credit, a flag shows up with your phone number personally, requiring them to call you to verify the authenticity of that transaction. That's the way to go. Yes?
Let's talk about multiple credit cards, how they might...
Multiple credit cards are a bad idea. I have 2 credit cards. I have an Amex Platinum for all my Delta miles, and I charge everything for that. And I will fly for free for the rest of my life. And I have an American Airlines MasterCard, because not everybody takes American Express. And that's it. I don't have any gas cards. I don't have any store cards. None of that garbage. And I'll tell you why. The more cards you have, the more bills you have coming in the mail, the more companies have your information, the more opportunities for fraud. Cancel all those accounts. It's not going to negatively affect your credit ratings. You only need to have a couple of different credit cards. You got a mortgage, you had a car payment, you're good. Your credit's fine. If you're in the 7s and 8s, you got nothing to worry about. Cancel all those peripheral cards that you're never going to use. Yes?
Not only do credit cards give you an available balance of thousands of dollars. Okay. So that's one issue. If you have a lot of those, would the credit bureaus look at those as saying, you know what, that person can immediately take advantage of thousands of dollars on each of the cards? Correct?
Yes.
So if I can do that, theoretically, I can get myself either through loans or just buying things, an awful lot of things very quickly.
Correct.
So if I'm a credit, from a credit account point of view, from a credit report point of view,
Yep.
I look at that capability and I say, that person